very succinctly here, what is the thesis behind this report? Why do you think, what evidence do you have that this company might be making errors in its statements?
Well, thank you for having me on, Romaine. And first, I'd like to just acknowledge and thank everybody and our first responders on the front line of this COVID virus that have been helping us all. Our thoughts and gratitude are with you. So what I'm basically saying here is Iqiyi, after a year of on-the-ground due diligence, is committing fraud and had been doing so prior to their IPO. What we saw from pulling their filings in China, their Chinese credit reports, which is basic due diligence that firms are not doing these days. They overstated their deferred revenue in 2015 by 260% and up to 86% in 2017 prior to their IPO, which means coming in and post-IPO, they've got that hole to dig out of. They're already saying they're bigger than they are, and they're not able to grow into it. So what we do and what we're known for is on-the-ground research. We don't just use a Bloomberg terminal. And we've done surveys on the ground in China, in Shanghai, in Guangzhou, in Beijing, and found that their users are about 40 to 60% less subscribers than they claim, and that they share revenue with some of their partners and take all of that revenue and show it as all of their revenue.
Is that unusual? Is that something that other companies do as well in China, Dan?
Commit fraud? It's happened quite often. In the last 10 years, we have been responsible for delisting over a dozen China-based companies for fraud. Nobody's gone to jail. Nobody's paid a fine. It's not illegal in China to steal from U.S. investors. You've got the Luckin Coffee situation that just kind of came out and fell apart this week. And prescient to this conversation, right after close today, Tal Education, who Muddy Waters Research, one of our affiliated firms, wrote on in 2018 as committing fraud, just reported employee wrongdoing and fraud in their numbers. So that's 2 this week, and that tide's starting to turn again. And unfortunately it's not unusual.
So, Dan, I mean, when you sort of look at these companies, you talk about Luckin Coffee. Obviously, they had that massive sell-off once they actually came out and admitted that they had found some irregularities and how at least one of its executives was reporting things. Right now, we're at a stage here where the company itself, Iqiyi, is denying your report, saying that nothing's wrong. I guess as a short seller and as someone who is making a bet that your research is right, what is the process here that you're now taking? How much downside do you see, and can that downside actually sort of materialize itself if you don't get some sort of admission out of the company itself?
I think it will materialize. And, look, I've been doing this for a very long time. They made the China Hustle. I was the lead protagonist in that documentary film. And I continue to do this work. And Iqiyi is as big a fraud as I've ever seen in China. And I've done a lot of it. So I think the bet here, and most of the people who traffic in these names, active managers, are not really betting whether I'm right or wrong. I think they know I'm right. They're betting, is the government going to act? Are they actually going to do an independent investigation like Luckin Coffee did? And that becomes the binary trade here. And maybe a year or 2 ago, that kind of stopped happening, where there wasn't any true independence in their board of directors, much like we have here in the United States, I might add. But it is happening more and more now. We're having that kind of relationship where we're demanding that investigations happen to vet allegations. Yeah. And if you look at some of my allegations, they're very straightforward and very easy to vet.
Right.
And if there is a truly independent investigation here, the downside is unlimited.
Yeah. So real quickly, we only have 20 seconds, Dan. Muddy Waters, were they part of this? Was this their idea, yours? How did you work together?
Well, we have stated we're affiliated with Muddy Waters from the foundation of Wolfpack Research. And to show how difficult it is to do on-the-ground research in China, it's frowned upon by the government, and we get harassed all the time. The breadth of this work took a year to do. So we were happy to have an affiliated firm be able to shoulder some of that responsibility. The best in the business, arguably the best short-selling research firm in the world, help us with this.
Yeah.
And, really we're able to vet each other's conclusions to make sure we get it wrong. Because if we're saying a company's doing something right and we're wrong about that, we're optimistic. If we're calling somebody a fraud and we're wrong, that's a very different thing.